Welcome to Money First CEO, the podcast for business owners ready to run their business like a boss and make their money work smarter, not harder. I'm Harman Johnston, bookkeeper, profit first professional, business coach, and mum of two from Sydney, Australia. I've built a thriving business by mastering money habits and systems that create real freedom. This show will help you take control of your finance so you can build a business and life that works for you. Every episode delivers one powerful takeaway you can action right away for more clarity, confidence, and cash. And from time to time, I'll be joined by special guests, fellow entrepreneurs, experts, and real business owners, sharing their money wins, lessons, and insights to inspire your next move. Because when you put money first, you unlock the options and freedom you deserve. So hit follow, grab your coffee, and let's dive in. Hello there, and welcome back to the Money First CEO podcast, where we believe if you put your money first, the rest will follow. I'm your host, Harman Johnston, and today we're talking about a decision that can either accelerate your business or quietly destroy it. And it's hiring, specifically hiring too early. Before you're financially ready, hiring feels like growth. It feels like you're stepping into the CEO role, more people, more support, more capacity, more momentum. And on the surface, it makes sense. You're busy, you're stretched, you're doing the work of 3 people. Of course you need help. But here's the truth most people learn too late. Hiring too early can quietly destroy your profit. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, slowly, month by month, until you look up and realize you're working harder than ever, making more revenue than ever, but keeping less than what you did when it was just you. And today we're going to unpack exactly how that happens, how to know when you're actually ready, and what to do instead of jumping into a full-time hire before your numbers support it. Because I see this mistake all the time, and I can call it the $100,000 mistake, because by the time you factor in the real costs, that's often what it adds up to. Let's get into it. So let's start with why this happens, because it's not that business owners are careless, it's that hiring decisions are almost never strategic. They're emotional. Think about the last time you seriously considered hiring someone. What was going on? I'd bet you were feeling overwhelmed, behind on deadlines, stretched across too many things, maybe dropping balls, maybe losing sleep. And in that moment, the thought comes in, I just need help. And it makes total sense. You do need help. You are stretched. But here's the problem. When we hire from that emotional place, we're not solving the right problem. We're trying to fix a systems issue with a person. Let me explain what I mean. If your business is messy right now, if the process is undocumented, if the workflow is all in your head, if clients are managed directly every time, hiring someone doesn't clean that up. It actually makes it worse, because now you've got someone new who needs direction, who needs training, who needs systems to follow. And if those systems don't exist yet, you end up spending more time managing them than you save by hiring them. I had a client come to us and she ran a graphic design agency, about $90,000 a month in revenue, busy, growing, more work than she could handle. So she hired 2 full-time designers, and within 6 weeks, she was more stressed than before. Not because they were bad at their jobs, they were really good, but because the business had no structure underneath it. There was no documented processes, no clear workflow, no project management system. Everything lived in her head. Every day she was answering questions, fixing things, redoing work, and still doing her own client work. She didn't need 2 designers. She needed systems first, then people. And that's the pattern I see over and over. Business owners who are drowning in the day-to-day, so they throw a person at the problem, but the person can't fix what's fundamentally broken. It's trying to bail water out of a boat that has a hole in it. You can hire more people to bail, but until you fix the hole, the boat keeps filling up. The fix is always structure first. Systems first, clarity first, and then people. When you hire from overwhelm, you often hire the wrong role because you're not thinking clearly, you're reactive. You might hire a VA when what you actually need is a project manager. You might hire a junior when you need a senior. You might hire full-time when part-time would have been enough. Emotional hiring leads to misaligned hiring. Misaligned hiring is expensive in money, time, energy, and momentum. So let's talk about the actual cost, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think about salary and stop there, but salary is only one piece, and it's not even the biggest piece. Say you hire someone at $70,000 a year. That sounds manageable. 70 grand feels like a solid investment, but that's not a $70,000 decision. On top of that salary, you've got superannuation. In Australia, it's 12%. So on 70 grand, that's another $8,500. And then you've got payroll tax if you're in a state that applies, workers' comp, and any industry-specific levies. Then the hidden costs start stacking up. Software licenses, they need access to your project management tools, your design software, your CRM, your email platform, and that could be another $200 to $500 a month, depending on your tech stack. And then equipment, a laptop, monitor, maybe a phone, and if they're remote, you're probably providing gear, training. Yeah, this is a big one. So usually for the first 3 to 6 months, this person is not fully productive. They're learning, they're asking questions, they're making mistakes, and every mistake has a cost. Whether it's redoing work, upsetting a client, or missing a deadline. And then there's your time managing them, your time reviewing their work, time onboarding, training, giving feedback, having check-ins. And if you're the founder and you're spending 5 to 10 hours a week managing a new hire, what's that costing your business? What revenue generating work are you not doing because you're in management mode? So when you add it all up, that 70,000 hire is costing you 90 to 100,000 in the first year, at least. Ask yourself, do you have the margin to carry that, sustain it month after month, regardless of how revenue fluctuates? Because this is where the real damage happens. You hire, things feel exciting for a few weeks, and then a slow month hits, or a client churns, or an unexpected expense comes up. And suddenly cash gets tight, and now you've got a salary obligation that doesn't pause just because your revenue dipped. The pressure builds, you start cutting corners, maybe you skip your own pay that month, and maybe you dip into the tax account. Maybe you stop the profit allocation, and the business, which was supposed to feel lighter with help, now feels heavier than ever. I had a client, coaching business, doing about $110,000 a month. She hired an operations manager, a marketing coordinator, and a VA all within the same quarter. 3 new salaries in 12 weeks. On paper, she could afford it. Revenue was strong, but she hadn't accounted for the ramp-up period. She hadn't built a buffer, and she hadn't stress tested her numbers for a bad month. And 2 months later, she had a $75,000 a month instead of the usual $110,000. And suddenly she couldn't cover payroll, tax, and herself. She went from feeling like a CEO to feeling like she was drowning, not because the hires were wrong, but because the timing was wrong. The financial foundations wasn't there yet, and that's the trap. Revenue can make you feel ready when your profit margin says otherwise. So let's talk about what I call the $100,000 mistake, because it's not just about the salary, it's about the cascading effect of hiring before your numbers are clear. And here's how it plays out. You hire before your profit is consistent, before your cash flow is stable, and before you've really understood what your margins look like month to month. And because the hire increases your fixed costs, your break-even point just went up. You now need to generate more revenue just to stay where you were. So what starts happening? First, you cover their wages from your own pay because there isn't enough margin to pay both of you properly. And so you take the hit. Just this month, you tell yourself, but 1 month becomes 3 and 3 months becomes 6. And then you dip into the tax account because it's sitting there and payroll is due. You tell yourself you'll top it up later. It's not due for another quarter, but later never comes. And now you're behind on tax again. Thirdly, you stop allocating to profit because there's nothing left after expenses and salaries. Profit becomes a nice idea instead of a discipline. And over 12 months, what does that actually cost you? And let's do the rough maths. So 6 months of reduced owner's pay, let's say you're shorting yourself $5,000 a month, that's $30,000. Tax money you dipped into and now you owe with interest and penalties. Let's call that $15,000 to $20,000. Lost profit allocations, another $20,000 to $30,000 over the year. The cost of your time managing someone who shouldn't have been hired yet, hours and hours of training, fixing, reviewing, let's conservatively say that's worth another $20,000 opportunity cost. Add it all up, you're easily at $100,000, maybe more. And that's the $100,000 mistake I'm talking about. It's not one bad decision. It's a chain reaction triggered by hiring before the financial foundations were solid. And the worst part, from the outside, the business looks like it's growing. More team, more revenue, more clients, but the owner is exhausted, underpaid, behind on tax, and wondering why growth feels so hard. I see this so often with clients at Blue Bookkeepers. They come to us after the hire when things feel out of control. When numbers don't make sense, when the bank account doesn't reflect the effort, and almost always when we dig into the numbers inside zero, we find the same pattern. Revenue went up, expenses went up, even more, and profit went sideways or backwards. And that's not growth, that's motion without progress. And I want better for you. I want you to hire from a position of strength, not desperation. So when are you actually ready? Because I'm not anti-hiring, not at all. Hiring the right person at the right time is one of the most powerful moves you can make as a CEO. I recently hired a senior BAS agent and an OBM in my own practice at Blue Bookkeepers. So I practice what I preach, but I did it when the numbers were clear, when the margins were there, and when I knew exactly what roles I needed filled. Not a moment before, but the key words are right time. It should feel boring. If hiring feels like a leap of faith, you're probably not ready. And if it feels like calculated, obvious next step, you probably are. So here's what ready looks like. First, you have consistent revenue, not one amazing month, but consistent. You can look at the last 3 to 6 months and see a stable pattern. You know roughly what's coming in each month. You can forecast with reasonable confidence. And second, you understand your numbers. You know your revenue, you know your expenses, and you know your profit margins. You know your owner's pay, you know your tax obligations. This isn't about being an accountant, it's about being informed. A CEO who doesn't know the numbers is guessing. And guessing is dangerous when you're about to add a significant fixed cost. Third, you already have a profit built in. This is a non-negotiable for me. If you're not consistently profitable before the hire, you won't be profitable after. A new team member doesn't generate profit automatically. They add capacity, but capacity without margin is just more work for less return. Fourth, you know exactly what role you're hiring for. Not I need help, that's too vague. You need to know what specific task this person will do, what outcomes they're responsible for, how you'll measure their impact. If you can't clearly define the role, you're not ready to fill it. Fifth, and this is the most important one, you can afford the hire without hoping things will improve. Let me say that again. You can afford the hire without hoping things will improve, because hope is not a strategy. I've heard this so many times. If I hire this one person, they'll help me take on more clients and revenue will go up and it'll pay for itself. Maybe. But what if it doesn't? What if the new clients don't come as fast as you're expecting? What if the ramp-ups take longer? What if there's a slow quarter? You need to be able to carry this hire for at least 3 to 6 months without any increase in revenue. If you can't do that comfortably, the timing isn't right. Let me give you a positive example. One of our clients runs a digital marketing agency. She's been wanting to hire a senior account manager for about a year. And every time she thought about it, she'd get nervous. When she came to us, we implemented the financial calm system. We got her zero cleaned up. We set up profit first allocations. We started weekly financial check-ins. And in about 4 months, she could clearly see that her profit margins was consistently at 22%. Her tax was fully set aside. Her owner's pay was locked in. She had a 3-month buffer in her operating expense. And at that point, she hired the account manager and it felt completely different. No anxiety, no second guessing, just a calm, confident decision backed by real numbers. And 6 months later, that hire freed her up to focus on business development. Revenue grew by about 15% and her profit margin went up because the account manager was more efficient than she was at that role. And that's what a well-timed hire looks like. It amplifies what's already working. It doesn't try to fix what's broken. And the difference between those two outcomes is timing. And timing is determined by your numbers. Now, I know some of you are listening and thinking, okay, Harman, I hear you, but I do need help. I can't keep doing everything myself. What do I do if I'm not financially ready for a full-time hire? You don't need to jump straight into full-time. There's smarter ways to start. So first option is get a contractor. Bring someone in on a contract basis for a specific scope of work. They handle a defined set of tasks. You pay them for what they deliver. No super, no leave entitlements, no long-term commitment. The second option is bring them on as part-time. You hire someone for 10 to 15 hours a week, enough to take the pressure off the critical tasks, but not enough to blow out your cost. You can always increase hours later. And the third option is project-based help. You need a website rebuild, a system documented, an onboarding process, pay a fixed fee, get the outcome, move on. Each of these give you 3 things that a full-time hire doesn't give you early on. Flexibility. You can scale up or down based on how the business is tracking. If revenue dips, you reduce hours or pause the contract. No difficult conversations, no redundancy obligations, lower risk. The financial commitment is smaller, and if it doesn't work out, the cost is manageable, not catastrophic. And real data, this is the one I love most. By starting with a contractor or part-timer, you get actual data on what tasks to delegate, what kind of support makes the biggest difference and what doesn't. Because here's the thing most people don't realize. You don't actually know what you need until you've tested it. You think you need a VA, but actually what moves the needle is a bookkeeper sometimes. You think you need a marketing person, but actually what frees you up is an ops manager. Starting small lets you figure that out without risking $100,000. One of our clients did exactly this. She was a business coach, solo, doing about $85,000 a month, exhausted. Instead of hiring full-time, she brought on a VA for 10 hours a week and contract project manager for a 3-month engagement to document all her processes. Total cost about $4,000 a month compared to what a full-time hire would have been, a fraction. And after 3 months, her systems were documented. The VA had taken over admin, inbox and scheduling. She had a crystal clear data on what her next full-time hire should be. And when she eventually hired full-time, she knew exactly what the role was, what it was worth, and what her numbers could support it. No guessing, no hoping, and that's how you scale smart. Test first, prove it works, then commit. Hiring should increase your profit, not protect your chaos. If your business still depends entirely on you, and if the processes aren't documented, if the numbers aren't clear, if you're not consistently profitable after paying yourself, adding a salary won't fix it. It will amplify it. Every weakness in your business gets magnified when you add people. If cash flow is messy now, it gets messier with more mouths to feed. And if you're behind on tax now, you'll be further behind with higher expenses. Slow it down. Get control first, build a foundation, and then grow. The business is thriving. The ones where the owners are calm, profitable, and enjoy the ride, they all have one thing in common. They hired after they had the clarity, not before. They knew their numbers, they had margins, they had systems, and so the hire slotted in smoothly instead of creating chaos. And that's what I want for you, not just growth, structured, sustainable, profitable growth. Because being busy isn't the same as being successful, and having a team isn't the same as having a profitable business. So your one takeaway before you hire anyone is go into zero right now and look at your last 3 months. Ask yourself one question. Were you consistently profitable after paying yourself? Not one good month out of 3, all 3. If the answer is yes, and you have a clear role to fill, you might be ready. If the answer is no, fix that first. Get your allocations right, build your margins, and create some buffer. Then come back to the hiring conversation, because the best hire you'll ever make is the one when your numbers are ready to support it. And that's it for today's episode. Keep putting money first and the rest will follow. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Money First CEO. If you got value from this episode, hit subscribe, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone who's building their business too. All the goodies are in the show notes, and you can find me on socials, more tips and tools to help you. Until next time, keep putting money first and the rest will follow.